I'm not going to big him up anymore because he doesn't need bigging up, trust me. So, we've put your hands together and welcome to the stage, Raymond Antrobus!
Hello. Hi. Honoured to be here. Thank you, James, for having me. And it's great to be in a night that feels so real. You know what I mean? Yeah, it feels real.
Biggest compliment ever.
Yeah. This is Derby. Yeah. The heart, the community. I feel that. And I got to say that this is so. I used to come to Derby when I was a kid. My mum used to take me up here to go hiking up in the hills and stuff. So that's my. I wasn't sure what to expect coming back to Derby, but I'll tell you why I've already fallen in love with Derby. So I come out the station and walking down the slope, and you all must have seen it, that bit by the shopping centre, and the big letters it says, nothing ever happens in, and then someone's written Derby. Right? So I'm standing in the middle of a street, and I'm taking a picture, and I'm like, trying to angle it. And this guy walks along, and he sees me taking a picture, and he goes, "It's true." And I said, "Well, I'm doing poems here tonight." And he looks at me, he's like, "Exactly." I love Derby. Instant humble. And that's what it's about. This whole night, everything just feels humble. So thank you as well for everyone who has let me listen to them as well. Thank you for that. So this first poem, because there was so much talk about identity politics and feeling one way about yourself, and another way in which society sees you, this is just kind of a social experiment. So however you feel at the moment about, not just being from Derby, but like the wider term of being British, I want you to just put that feeling into however you say British. So if you say the word British collectively. British. Okay, one more time. British. Cool. British. I've read this book. Brilliant. Yeah, I'm good. Alright, so this is the Gazelle. There's this really obscure guy called Jay-Z. You might have heard of him. As a rapper. He's got this album called The Blueprint Part 2, and I love the fact that Sean the Paul is on this track as well. And what I realise is in this particular track, Jay-Z follows a ancient Middle Eastern poetry form in his verses, where he just repeats the last two lines at the end of every one of his verse. I counted the syllables that Jay-Z follows, the rhyme scheme that he follows, and I just wrote my own version back to it. So thank you Jay-Z, thank you Sean Paul, thank you Derby! So when I do this to say the word British. Some people deny that I'm Jamaican. British. Nose Anglo, hair straight, no way I'm Jamaican. British. They think I say I'm black when I say I'm Jamaican. British. But the English kids at school made me choose Jamaican. British. Half caste, half new house slave Jamaican. Light skin, straight male, privileged Jamaican. British. Eat the callaloo, jerk chicken, I'm Jamaican. British don't know how to serve our dishes, they enslaved us. At school I fought a boy in the lunch hall, Jamaican. At home I told Dad that I hate them, all them Jamaicans. I'm British. He laughed, told me you cannot love sugar and hate your sweetness. And took me straight to Jamaica, passport. British. Cousins in Kingston called me Jar English. Proud to have someone in their family. British. Plantation lineage, World War service. How do I serve Jamaican? British. When knowing how to war is Jamaican.
Yeah.
British. Thank you.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I was asking people to use the microphone is because I'm deaf. So I wear 2 hearing aids, I lip read, I've done years of speech therapy, and I'm gonna tell you this story. The first job I ever had when I left school was as a lifeguard, and I don't think there's any social injustice in this, but I didn't tell them I was deaf. because they do not employ deaf lifeguards. And I think that makes sense. I do. Because when they train you, so much of the coding between the lifeguards, is anyone here train lifeguards? No? So much of the communication between lifeguards is through whistles, is through sound. And yeah, so I'm sitting on the deep end and I'm surveying the pool, and they're like, it's crowded, it's a Saturday afternoon, lots of families, lots of children, and I'm watching the deep end and the wave machine is on. So there's this humming sound, and suddenly I hear this whistle blown long and loud. Now when a lifeguard hears that particular sound, we're trained to say, oh my God, there's a danger, get in the pool. I thought I heard this whistle, and I react. And I dived into the pool, and I thought I saw a child drowning. There's a reason why the last thing a lifeguard should do is get in the pool, and that is people panic. So as soon as I'm in the pool, people are panicking, everyone's going crazy, oh my God. And obviously this child was not drowning. He sees me, freaks out, everyone's going crazy now. And within like 20 seconds, everyone has evacuated the pool. They're all standing on the pool edge, just leaving me treading water with the wave machine. And I never forgot that. I never forgot that.
Neither have I.
So I'm going to read this poem in response to James Bunting's set. It's called Lifeguard. It involves water and my father. Lifeguard. The doctor asked my dad if he remembers who he is. His tongue without strength to lift him from where he sunk to the bottom of his brain. I want to dive into the black and grey pool of his medicated eyes to save my dad's breath by speaking for him. I tell the doctor he is my dad, but the doctor looks at me like I rescued somebody already drowned. Anyone here know what a talk over dub is? A talk over dub. It's like, so like you've got ska and you've got like instrumental dub. And it's just when, so like people might say Little Quizzy Johnson does talk over dub.
Yeah.
Talk over dub, yeah, of course. So my dad is a Jamaican man, and he like recorded talk over dubs in his flat all the time. And I wrote this poem because when he passed away, one of the main inheritances that I have is just these tapes of his voice on it. So that there's these dub tapes, and then every now and then it's just him doing a little scat. Yeah. Slow down. Here come the vibe. Hear me now. And then, but then randomly throw in like quotes from the Bible, and that bit always confused me. Like the music would just stop and he'd be like, Jesus, tell them on the mountain. and it confused me because my dad was not a religious man. He just had Jesus in there, just threw it in.
Exactly right.
And yeah, I'm gonna. This poem is in this book. Yeah, here it is. And also, the first draft of it was 2 sonnets, because I like the idea that sonnets are like they call them little machines of sound because of the shape of them on the page. So I put 2 sonnets together, but then I felt like it was a bit too rigid. So I used a sonnet to give me the structure, and then wrote it out in my voice. So this is just called Sound Machine, and it begins with a quote by James Thompson, which goes, "My mirth can laugh and talk, but cannot sing. My grief finds harmonies in everything. And what comes out if it isn't the wires Dad wells to his homemade sound system, which I accidentally knocked loose while he is recording talk overdubs, killing the bass, flattening the mood and his muses, making Dad blow his fuses and beat me. It wasn't my fault. The things he made could be undone so easily, and we would keep losing connection. But I praise my dad's mechanical hands. Even though he couldn't fix my deafness, I still channel him. My sound system plays on Father's Day in Manor Park Cemetery, where I find his grave and for the first time see his middle name, Osbert, derived from Old English, meaning God, and bright, which may have been a way to bleach him. Darkest of his 5 brothers, but only one sent away from the country to live uptown with his light-skinned aunt. She protected him from police who did not believe he belonged unless they heard his English, which was smooth as some uptown roads. His aunt loved him and taught him to recite Wordsworth and Coleridge, rhythms that wouldn't save him. He would become Rasta and never tell a soul about the name that undid his blackness. It is his grave that tells me the name. His black body, even in death, could not move or meet. I'm going to read one more poem from Too Sweet and Bitter, which was published in April. And I'm going to read this poem in response to the Grenfell Towers in London. I think that everyone should feel that. That's a sign of our time. And I'm going to read this poem because so many of the stories that we all hear from the Grenfell Towers, it's about family. It's about these people trying to live, trying to survive, and they fucking burn to death in the middle of that. And we live in a country where people are so separated that can actually happen. And so I'm going to dedicate it to them and to mothers and to people making a family. I wrote this poem initially because this was a few years ago, and I found myself constantly saying, what is possible? Jesus Christ, what is possible? This is before Brexit, this is before Trump, this is before any madness. So I was like, oh, what is possible now? So what is possible is that I will fly, and I will grow too big for my bed like dreams that stretch me into a giant. I cannot get enough sleep because it is late. The TV is on downstairs and I can hear it, even though my hearing aids are not in. I will complain about it in the morning, and Mum will ask why my hearing gets better at night. It will take me another 10 years to appreciate how hard she has worked to keep me warm in a house. It is true. I am held together by her love, but that reality is buried too deep inside me to pluck and say, ah yes, I am only fully alive if you are. I am in bed, and there are stickers on the ceiling glowing in the dark, so it is never completely dark because I used to be afraid of it. But I have become friends with the dark because it keeps me hidden while I think about a girl I like who is not here, who I wish she was. Then we could do stuff I don't yet know how to do. It is possible I'm going to wake up a white American man like Tom Hanks because I just saw the film Big. I would do anything to dance and giant piano keys playing Harmon Soul. It is possible that the only thing that separates me from another universe is the window I sleep next to. It is possible that I know what is out there and I can feel something inside my gut has legs and it is kicking, saying we can go anywhere when we wake up tomorrow morning. It is possible I am just trying to sleep inside myself, and this is the most peaceful sleep I will ever have. The TV on downstairs while Mum works through the night threading jewelry to sell at the weekend market. Sounds muffled through the floorboards. My big sister in the bedroom upstairs. I can't hear her, but I know that she is there. She will wake up tomorrow morning. It is impossible that she won't. It is possible I will fall out of my skin, and the dream will become something I walk around in.
Yeah.
By the way, one other thing about that poem is the reason why I read it is because it's a block on the page, kind of like a tower block.
Yeah.
It always made me think, okay. Anyway, this poem I wrote, as well as being a poet, I've been a teacher. To teach English, teach creative writing. I've been doing that for the last 5-6 years. Initially, I trained as an English teacher. School system got a bit crazy, and I found a way to combine my practice as a poet and as a writer with the pedagogy of teaching, and that's the way in which I communicate with the world now. And I specifically last year wanted to work with deaf young people I went through deaf education. My second language is sign. And I found that many of the deaf young people I was working with in this country are still going through a lot of difficult things that I feel I went through as well. Alienation, taboo, lack of access in classrooms. And the first day when I was meeting these young deaf people, I saw a lot of joy in them as well, but there was a lot of feeling, so I went home and I wrote this poem, and I wrote it out as a letter. So I took three different voices into this letter. The first voice I took was by a man called James Baldwin, who wrote this fantastic essay called The Fire Next Time, and it's an address to his nephew. Amazing letter. Then there is a speech given by Malcolm X at Oxford University, which is brilliant. And thirdly, there's a poet called Denez Smith, who's from the States. And so I took those three influences and put it into this poem, and it's called Dear Hearing World. Dear Hearing World, I have left Earth in search of sounder orbits, a solar system where the space between a star and a planet isn't empty. I have left a white beard of noise in my place, and many of you won't know the difference. We are indeed the same volume. All of us eventually fade. I have left Earth in search of an audible God. I do not trust the sound of yours. You would not recognize my grandmother's hallelujah if she had to sign it. You would have made her sit on her hands and put a ruler in her mouth as if measuring her distance from holy. Take your God back. There is songs are beautiful, they are not loud enough. I want the fate of Lazarus for every deaf school you've closed, every deaf child whose confidence has gone to a silent grave, every BSL user who has seen the annihilation of their language. I want these ghosts to haunt your tongue-tied hands. I have left Earth. I am equal parts sick of your I'm hard of hearing too. Just because you've been on an aeroplane or suffered head colds, your voice has always been the loudest sound in a room. I call you out for refusing to acknowledge sign language in classrooms, for assessing deaf students on what they can't say instead of what they can. They did not ask to be part of the hearing world. I can't hear my joints crack, but I can feel them. I am sick of sounding out your rules. You tell me I breathe too loud, but it is rude to make noise when I eat. Sent me to speech therapist, said I was speaking a language of holes. I was pronouncing what I heard, but your judgment made all my syllables disappear. Your magic master trick, hearing world, drowning out the quiet, bursting all speech bubbles in my graphic childhood. You were glad to benefit from audio supremacy. I tried hearing people, I tried to love you, but you laughed at my deaf grammar. I used commas, not full stops, because everything I said kept running away. I mewed over long paragraphs because I didn't know what a natural break sounded like. You erased what could have always been poetry. Strike that out, you erased what could have always been poetry. Taught me I was inferior to standard English expression. I was a broken speaker, you were never a broken interpreter. Taught me my speech was dry for someone who should sound like they're underwater. And it took years to talk with a straight spine and mute red marks on the coursework you assign. Deaf voices go missing like sound in space, and I have left Earth to find them.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. If you want, you can just take a stretch. I find it good to do. So my second job after being a lifeguard was a personal trainer, and I didn't tell them that I was deaf there either. So I lost my job after about 2 years. Noise in the gym, it makes sense. Again, I get it. So it's like, okay, the only thing I can do is be a poet and speak to people and not worry too much about who's talking back to me. I was in New York last November and I came across this newspaper article, and it was like this little tiny article about a man called Daniel Harris, and it said Daniel Harris was driving one afternoon and he was a siren sounded out, and he He's a profound deaf man, Daniel Harris, so he doesn't hear this siren. He's pursued by the police 5 miles down the road. When he parks, still doesn't know he's being pursued by the police. He gets out of the car, the police officer is standing with a gun pointing at him. He doesn't speak, and he's trying to use his hand to say, "I'm deaf." And the police officer shoots him dead, just like that. And this story was like in 70 words. And I thought, no, I'm going to take that story and I'm going to give it volume in places like Derby. Good man. So, it would be terrible, the poem is bad now. One thing to know about sign language that's interesting is that every time you have a conversation in sign, everything is present. There's no real future and past. You can say the past, but everything is very much like, this happens now. And also, BSL, British Sign Language, and American Sign Language are totally different languages. So my BSL was useless in America. But I did learn that in ASL, the word alive is this, alive. When Daniel Harris stepped out of his police car, rewind. When Daniel Harris stepped out of his car, the policeman was waiting, gun raised. I use the past tense, though this is irrelevant in Daniel's language, which is sign. Sign has no future or past, it is a present language. You are never more present when a gun is pointed at you. What language says this if not sign? But the police officer saw hands waving in the air, fired, and Daniel dropped his hands, his chest bleeding out onto concrete meters from his home. I am in Brooklyn Coffee House in New York reading this news on my phone when a black policewoman walks in, guns on her hips, my friend next to me reading the comment section, Black Lives Matter. Now what could we sign or say out loud? When the last word I learned in American Sign Language was alive, alive. Both thumbs pointing at your lower abdominal, index fingers pointing up like two guns in the sky. There's been a lot of themes to touch on today, and I'm going to go for politics.
Yeah.
Well, So let's do a little pub quiz. I'm going to read you a quote, and you have to guess who you think said it. So the first quote, who said this? Barack Obama is part Kenyan and has an ancestral hatred of Britain. Who said that?
Boris Johnson.
Some people were saying Trump, but they're wrong.
Boris Johnson.
Who said Boris Johnson? For a show of hands, big up the, well, this is the only time I'm going to say this, big up the Boris Johnson crew. Because he's right, yes, Boris Johnson did say that. How about this quote? So this man is asked about reparations for the transatlantic slavery, which happened over 500 years and made most of Europe very, very rich. And when he's asked about that current history, he says, England is more interested in the future than the past. Who said that?
Cameron.
Hey, oh, Derby's on fire tonight. Cameron did say that. David Cameron. Okay, one more quote. The problem is not that we used to be in charge in Africa, but that we are not in charge anymore.
It could be Churchill, it could be any fucking Thatcher.
Boris Johnson.
Hey! Boris Johnson in the house! So, all three of these quotes were said, between in the last 4 years, and I love that when I ask people this, they always assume that it's like, oh, it must have been like in the 60s and the 50s. This shit is said by our current international secretary of defense. Like, oh, mad times. Anyway, I spent some time in Kenya, and I was teaching in Kenya, and I kept a journal, and some of what I wrote in interacting with these schools in Kenya came out of it. And anything else to say about this? Lake Victoria comes to everyone talks about Lake Victoria in Kenya. It's an interesting point. Yeah, so this is into 4 parts. Day 1. The classroom is an open-air hut. 84 children on chairs and low brick walls. I walk in reeking of the road. There's a gap in the roof where sunlight beams onto my forehead. Hello, I say. Jambo Bawana, as the class says. Dan explains as the kids speak Luo and Kiswahili, so he will need to translate. Even the poets I met in Cape Town would call this village the real Africa. Not because the children don't have shoes, they do, but because there are no hotels or British schools or Chinese casinos. Shannon, a girl in a faded Man United shirt, asked how I became a poet. I start talking in a language distant until Dan carries my story in his tongue. Night 1. I lie in the candle-lit hut, thinking how English would never be the right tongue to ask this class what matters. I wonder, what if no European discovered anything in Kenya? What if there was no brutal history to speak in and write in English? Would they still have colonized the classroom? Ben, John, David, Christine, Haley, Toby. After hearing David Cameron on the radio, I dreamt of Umyuhu Kenyatta, Kenyan president, refusing to apologize for Africa's role in slavery and underdeveloping Europe because Africa is more interested in the future. I wake to say that even though I have come to teach poetry and not history, our language has not come from the future. It has crawled from a cave and rode to so many shores that we speak in crashed waves and trade winds. Night 2. Dan, the Kenyan teacher, drives me to the airport past Lake Victoria. I ask him if he knows the name of that lake before 1858. He tells me, I could tell you, but it has no meaning in English. So this is my last poem. Thank you again so much for listening. It's an absolute privilege to be here and to be
Come and buy his book.
Gami. Yeah, there are books on the table. It would be an honour if they find homes. So this is my last poem. And has anyone here been to Barcelona?
Yeah.
Cool, wicked. Big up the Barcelona crew. Has anyone here been to Gaudi's Cathedral in Barcelona?
Yeah.
A few people. Wicked. Big up the Gaudi crew. Has anyone here done the audio guide in the Gaudi Cathedral? No,
Yeah.
quite specific. There's I love audio guides. I have my own headphones that I take with me because I have these amazing magic headphones which the Bluetooth connects directly to my hearing aids. And so I was there quite a number of years ago actually, and if you go to, like, there are different sections of a church that are numbered. So if you go to section number 2, I think it is, it says to stand in this corner and look up. And in this particular section of the church, it's this really kind of like unorthodox shape to the building. And what it says is stand up and shout and sing and make a noise. And it then says to be vigilant about how that sound travels, because it said that that shape is meant to be the perfect container of sound. To experience sound in that space is to experience sound as an angel would. So with this elevation of sound, I'm having this experience artificially, and I'm wondering, am I included in this elevation? Am I here? And that was a question which lived inside me for a long time. And then my dad passed away, and it kind of gave me a way to write about him and our time together. It's called Echo. Oh, and by the way, deaf doorbells, they flash. And I have one, and they're great. 1. My ear amps whistle like they are singing to Echo, goddess of noise, the raveled knot of tongues, of blaring birds, consonant crumbs, of dull doorbells, sounds swamped in my misty hearing aid tubes. Gaudi believed in holy sound and built a cathedral to contain it. pulling hearing men from their knees as though deafness was a kind of atheism. Who would turn down God? Even though I have not heard the golden decibel of angels, I have been living in a noiseless palace, where the doorbell is pulsating light, and I am able to answer. 2. What? A word that keeps looking in mirrors like it is in love with its own volume. What? I am a one-word question, a one-man patience test. What? What language would we speak without ears? What? Is paradise a world where I hear everything? What? How will my brain know what to hold if it has too many arms? 3. The day I clear out my dead father's flat, I throw away boxes of moulding LPs. Garvey, Malcolm X, Mandela, speeches on vinyl. I find a TDK cassette tape on the shelf, smudged green label, Raymond speaking. I play the tape in his vintage cassette player and hear my 2-year-old voice chanting my name, Antrobus, and Dad's laughter crackling in the background, not knowing I couldn't hear the word bus and wouldn't until I got my hearing aids. Now I sit here listening to the space of deafness. Antrobus, Antrobus, Antrobus. And no one knew what I was missing, until a doctor gave me a handful of Legos and said to put a brick on the table every time I heard a sound. After the test, I still held enough bricks in my hand to build a house and call it my sanctuary. Call it the reason I sat in saintly silence during my grandfather's sermons where he preached the good news I only heard as Babylon's babbling echoes. 5. And if you don't catch nothing, there's something wrong with your ears. They've been tuned to the wrong frequency. Kai Miller. So maybe I belong to the universe underwater, where all songs are smeared wailings for Salacia, goddess of salt water, healer of infected ears, which is what the doctor thought I had since deafness did not run in the family, but came from nowhere. So they syringed in olive oil and salt water, and we all waited to see what would come out.